Legend Onslaught continues to be the go-to grind in Destiny 2. I did manage to get the edge transit roll I was chasing, but it's not shiny, damn it, so back to the mines I go. As for all of you, whether you want more builds to grind out both the Midnight Coup and the Mountaintop, which drop today by the way, or you're still chasing that very first Legend difficulty 50 wave clear, I got you. Today I've got more tips and builds for you to yoink and use, but remember, if you didn't catch my first video, those builds and tips are still super hot fire. Link to that video in the pinned comment. This time I asked members of my community to hit me with any and all builds they used to clear 50 waves on Legend difficulty with, and after a bunch of testing and fiddling around, I've narrowed it down to my favorite 3. They're definitely not groundbreaking new meta shakeups by any degree, but they do their jobs really well and they're easy to use. We'll get to those builds in a minute, but first, more tips. Here's a really popular one. Before throwing batteries at the ADU like you normally would, you can first throw them at your defensive structures to heal them. Sounds like bait, but I swear to God, it is true. As mentioned in my other guide, decoys do seem to have kind of a hidden health bar, and they will flash red when they're injured, and then disappear if they take too much damage. To keep them around longer, if you see your decoy or turret flashing red, just take a battery and throw it at it to heal it. Then when you're done, pick the battery back up and throw it at the ADU like you normally would. Not really sure if that is a bug or a feature. Guess we'll have to wait to hear from Bungie on that one. Another important tip, Tom the Tormentor, everyone's favorite Legend run killer, isn't actually completely random. As it turns out, he can potentially show up on any round that ends in either 3 or 9. So 3, 9, 13, 19, 23, you get the idea. With that in mind, if you haven't seen him in a while and you're coming up on one of those rounds, maybe just be a little extra on guard. When Tom eventually does show up, here's a big tip. Get off the goddamned ADU. Tom will either go for a decoy if there's one nearby, or he'll chase down the nearest guardian. Meaning, if you drop a Radiant Well on the ADU or huddle around it instinctively, you done effed up. Remember, enemies simply standing next to the ADU will cause the ADU to take damage. They don't need to be attacking it at all. Knowing that, when Tom inevitably shows up, try to intentionally lead him far away from the ADU so it doesn't take damage during the fight. Next tip that I'll try to reinforce when we talk about builds, you should really get into the habit of having kind of 2 variants of one build. That is, if your goal is to be either crazy efficient or beat 50 waves on Legend for the first time. Think of it this way, you got your main build for protecting the ADU and then swapping to a slightly different build when you're in the pyramid about to have the boss fight. Reason being, you always hit a rally flag before the pyramid boss fight, and there's no in-game timer to keep you moving. Therefore, if you have an ad clear or crowd control build when defending the ADU, you can freely change to a boss DPS loadout before the pyramid fight, literally every time with no pressure. The other DPS focused loadout could be as minimal as swapping your weapons or your exotic, or a completely different build altogether, up to you. Just know that the option is there for you if you want to take it. Alright, final new tip. It would seem that there is a hardcore cheese spot in the pyramid boss room. And I don't mean the one where you kinda go to the back of the room and maybe have a little bit of cover. I mean literally going straight up into the ceiling of the map. Shout out to Zenerus, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, aka the first person to clear 50 waves on Legend as a solo player. Seems like you just move over to the right position, jump way up, and that's about it. Call me crazy, but I can't really imagine Bungie would let that be a thing for very long, so I would expect a patch note fairly soon that maybe makes that cheese no longer doable. Until then, up to you. But before we get any further, Mother's Day is coming up, and I'm sure some of you out there are probably the type to get a dumb mug or whatever else you can think of when you walk into Walgreens at the last minute to get a card that you're gonna sign for your poor mother on the drive over. Thankfully, today's video is brought to you by Raycon earbuds, here to save the day. Mama Fallout loves audiobooks, and if yo mama do too, Raycon earbuds are the perfect pairing. I usually use mine when I'm jogging or cooking. Highly recommended. Not jogging. Don't ever do that. But anyway, with optimized gel tips for the perfect in-ear fit, these earbuds are so comfortable, and check it out, they remain in your ear. With 8 hours of playtime and 32-hour battery life, Raycons can keep mom happy and listening to whatever she likes, no problem. Get a pair for your mom and one for yourself. I won't tell her next time I see her. Click the link down in the video description or go to buyraycon.com/fallout to get 20% off your purchase and free shipping. Again, buyraycon.com/fallout for 20% off your order and free shipping. Thank you, Raycon. All right, we back. And now let's get into the builds, starting with a Titan build. Kind of a huge mountain to climb, if I'm being completely honest, as the Solar Titan build in my first Onslaught video is incredibly fun and still one of my favorites overall. Thankfully, we got the goods. A Strand Titan build submitted by Jason in my community. Shout out to him. As with every build we go over today, the dim links will be down in the pinned comment if you want to check out the build in detail. By the way, quick heads up, this Strand Titan build does not feature Banner of War. I know, remain calm, everything will be fine. The TLDR of the Strand Titan build, if you've never played one before, you are Suspend on Demand. The entire kit completely revolves around you being able to string up everyone faster than a dominatrix on an energy drink bender. Aspect-wise, into the fray for Woven Mail abuse. It also gives allies Woven Mail even if they're not on Strand, which I'm sure they'll appreciate. Pair that together with Drenger's Lash, which I'm never quite sure if I'm pronouncing correctly. Doesn't matter, that aspect is your main spammable tool that you'll be using on repeat with this build. Drop your barricade and send out a wave to suspend anyone who gets caught in the way. As you can imagine, we'll be pairing that together with the Abiant Leap exotic to make it even better. Now, instead of one suspending wave, when you drop your barricade, you'll get 3, which are more aggressive and go even further. On top of that, more Woven Mail abuse. Yay. Fragment-wise, Thread of Continuity should be a no-brainer. We're trying to suspend enemies a lot, so we want them to remain suspended for even longer. Thread of Mind will give us more barricade energy when we kill a suspended target, meaning we can begin the cycle of dropping a fresh barricade to suspend more people even faster. Thread of Generation gives additional grenade energy for dealing damage. Now would be a good time to mention that we're running Shackle Grenade for more suspending. Finally, Thread of Warding, where you can get even more Woven Mail from grabbing an Orb of Power. And if you're on any Onslaught team who even cares a little bit about build crafting, there's probably going to be a lot of orbs laying around. In the weapon department, we're rocking Wishkeeper, Indebted Kindness, and a rocket launcher of your choice, but you can change that around if you want. Wishkeeper works really well for the build because A, it can drop snare traps on the ground for even more suspending, and B, you deal bonus damage to suspended targets. On my crafted Wishkeeper, we have Vorpal Weapon, as that'll let you deal an additional 20% extra damage per shot to a boss, but you could also go with Enduring Snare refit or Multi-Threaded Snare refit if you want. Side note, if you haven't gotten yourself a good Indebted Kindness, you are missing the fuck out. In Onslaught, the Pocket Rocket Sidearm puts in work. It hits fairly hard and manages special ammo so well that you can almost use it as a primary weapon. Mine's got Volt Shot, but I won't nitpick here. The gun is great in general. For heavy, I'm using a standard crafted Apex rocket launcher, but you could use whatever you like. If you haven't noticed, those 3 weapons allow you to handle every champion type, which is nice. Our bow and suspending in general can handle Unstoppable, our rocket sidearm can handle barrier, and our crafted Apex rocket launcher can handle overload. In general, I found myself using the bow a lot when things are chill, but when things get hairy, the Indebted Kindness goes real hard. The rocket launcher is again for overload champs or when big enemies show up who take a lot of damage. Before rally flagging before a boss fight, if your team doesn't have a Gallarhorn user, aka if you're not collectively using a rocket damage strategy, you could potentially change Wishkeeper for a different primary and change the Apex to something like Sleeper. As mentioned earlier in the tips, you should get into the habit of maybe having 1 or 2 builds for Onslaught. One for killing trash and defending the ADU, then maybe a slightly modified version for boss fighting. Armor mod wise, on the helmet, Harmonic Siphon and Arc Siphon for a lot of orb generation, which again gives us free Woven Mail. Powerful friends because hey, we're helpful teammates out here, god damn it. For arms, I like the combination of Focusing Strike and Impact Induction. Basically, if you whack an enemy with your melee ability, you reduce the cooldown of both your class ability and your grenade, which we both use to suspend things. Triple defensive options on the chest, nothing new there, and your choice of scavenger. I went with Solar to make sure I didn't run out of rockets too quickly, but I'm considering going Arc Scav for more sidearm spam. Finally, Utility Kickstart and Reaper. Reaper just to put more orbs out on the field, and Utility Kickstart to get our cheesy Titan barricade back even faster. Stat-wise, I'd say try to focus on getting 10 Resil, and after that, Recovery and Discipline for both staying alive and more suspend grenade spam. This build really puts in work on Ad Clear. You'll be able to suspend most things that come your way, and if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, just pop your super as kind of an oh shit button that can help you clear the field. Got through 50 legend waves with this build no problem and really enjoyed it. Next up, a Void Hunter build, and this one comes courtesy of Fangs, also a streamer by the way. Go go check her out. I know my first Onslaught build video also featured a Void Hunter, but this one has a kit that's a little bit easier to abuse, IMO. Basically, using the Orpheus Rig exotic, you're going to be able to drop a lot of tethers. Feeling moderately overwhelmed? Drop a tether. Just want to make orbs and make the wave easier? Screw it. Drop a tether. There's really no wrong time to drop a tether, because when it's all over, you'll probably only be moments away from getting another tether. Vanishing Step and Trapper's Ambush for invis whenever you need it. Might not sound that amazing, but there's plenty of times where you can straight up make things go faster by just going invis. Dunking the rift in the pyramid would be a great example. Echo of Reprisal is great for getting even more super energy on the regular, which again, kind of the whole point of the build. Echo of Starvation, because who doesn't like free devour? Echo of Expulsion, although honestly that might not even be needed, and Echo of Obscurity. Now, having yet another method of going invis may seem like overkill, but when paired together with Proximity Ward, it becomes clear. Doing a finisher is your oh shit panic button if you're getting overwhelmed, but there's a weak enemy nearby. Hit the finisher and live through it thanks to the Proximity Ward overshield, and now you're invisible, so you can reposition and get out of danger. Weapon-wise, we got good options that can both potentially handle every kind of champion and help out the team in other ways. Chill Clip Riptide is a classic. Remember, if you don't yet have one, you can focus one from Shax at the tower if you have a few PvP engrams laying around. For a primary weapon, Fangs recommended a summoner with Heal Clip and Incandescent. I have Heal Clip Onslaught, and honestly, that's pretty good too. Heal Clip in general is great for any team, and remember, with Flint Striker on the artifact, you can get Radiant even if you're not playing on a solar class. These weapons can also handle every kind of champion, although you may struggle a little bit with Barrier if you're only relying on Radiant. For your heavy weapon, we have Gallarhorn, because why the hell not? If your team is rocking a rocket launcher DPS loadout, you're going to be the one giving out Wolfpack rounds. Kind of important. If the rest of your team isn't using legendary rocket launchers, still a good weapon overall. Armor mod wise, here's what we got. Dynamo on the helmet is important for getting even more super energy whenever you can. Solar Surge for more damage on 2 out of our 3 weapons, and Time Dilation to make it longer. For your stat distribution, I'm going to recommend High Resil and High Intellect. Normally, building into Intellect in endgame PvE is understandably frowned upon because you already build up a ton of super energy naturally by killing a lot of enemies. People think of it as kind of a waste. However, the entire point of this build, again, is to get and use Tether as frequently as we can. But if you only want to put so much into Intellect because the super regen is already wild on this build, I totally get it, you do you. Finally, for Warlock, we have a little bit of a hybrid situation. Shout out to both Joker and Wags for submitting solar builds that are very similar but very good. For those of you watching, you could either pick which one would fit your team better or use one version for ad clear and the other for a boss phase, kind of like how we talked about. Joker's build is kind of a Warlock version of the Hunter Tether build, aka being able to spam Warlock well frequently thanks to Phoenix Protocol. Thanks to Phoenix Protocol, you can feel extremely free to drop your well at almost any time in combat. If your teammates are with you in your well and shooting trash, you can literally get your next Radiant Warlock well fully charged before the first one ends. Naturally, that is very good for defending the ADU, but also for basically every boss fight. In fact, if you combine this Solar Warlock build and the Orpheus Rig Hunter build, you've got a rock-solid 1-2 punch combo for every boss encounter in Onslaught. Wags' build is extremely similar, but instead uses the Dawn Chorus helmet to focus on abusing Scorch even further. I'm going to continue with Joker's Phoenix Protocol build for the time being, but urge you to also check out Wags' Dawn Chorus variant, which I'll link down in the pinned comment with additional notes. Anywho, to ensure maximum lighting the room on fireness, we have Ember of Ashes for better Scorch, Ember of Char for the spreading of Scorch, Ember of Eruption for bigger ignitions, and Ember of Combustion. Reminder that even though we're rocking Radiant Well, all weapon damage done from a well will count as super ability damage for the caster. Translation: solar weapon kills in a well will count as solar super kills, so Combustion will play on this build. Weapon-wise, both Joker and Wags went with Sunshot and Tusk of the Boar, which makes sense. Sunshot for the very straightforward reason of lighting everything in the room on fire and creating explosions, but also Tusk of the Boar to take advantage of unraveling orbs on the artifact. TLDR, what's better than spreading Scorch and ignitions? Throwing unraveling on top of that pile. If you don't have a good Tusk of the Boar, you could just say F it and swap in a craftable Pardon Our Dust with disorienting grenades, which, reminder, are ridiculously good in Onslaught. You'll notice I've done that a fair amount in the filler footage because I really love that gun. Armor mod wise, nothing too wild. Harmonic Siphon to make orbs, then then Solar Weapon Surge to turn that armor charge into extra weapon damage, and Time Dilation to make it last longer. Fellow Warlock lovers, if you just want a straightforward, no fancy gimmicks build, you got two great options right here. Again, there's really a lot of good stuff on the artifact right now that makes Solar damn fun. For stat distribution, I'm recommending high Resil and either high Intellect or Recovery. Again, like the Orpheus Rig Tether Hunter, if you feel like you already have really high super regen on Phoenix Protocol and don't want to dump into Intellect, that's fine. If you're going into the Dawn Chorus variant version, I'd hard recommend Resil and then Recovery. Again, link to every build in the pinned comment of today's video. Feel free to modify any as you see fit. And honestly, I would try to recommend to use all three class options together on one team if you can. At the very least, the Tether Spam Hunter and the Radiant Well Spam Warlock would be great together, but I like the idea of using all three. If you have a build you really like for Legend Onslaught, drop it down in the comment section. I'll check it out when I get time. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks for watching. Peace!